Hi, I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell, and I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. This video marks the beginning of a new series on aesthetics. I'm going to be doing an aesthetics lecture series in conjunction with several other series that I'm simultaneously doing beginning summer 2012. One of the books that I added, the initial book, you guys know the initial book because it's the first in the video installment, and I hyperlinked directly to the Amazon page from the video. I also had a second book that I added, and it's this book. It's a very, very fat, very thick book. The Continental Aesthetics Reader, second edition. This is the second book that I'll be using. So you know the first book. If you're going to follow along in the series, make sure you get both books. I'm going to be using both books. The beginning of the lecture series, this first installment, and first few several hours, will entail this book. I'll be using this book as my reference, so please make sure that you get this book in order to follow along with the lecture series. For those of you who are watching me for the first time, all of my personal notes that I've compiled based on the readings from both books will be accessible to you. Just click the link in the description field. It'll take you to the PDF that I've created, and every time you come back to watch updated versions of updates on the lecture series, make sure you update the PDF as well, because the PDF is basically organic. It grows as the lecture series grows. So make sure you have the most up-to-date notes. Make sure you get the books, and with that, let's begin our lecture series on aesthetics. I wanted to make sure that I offered a balanced approach to aesthetics, and I went through both of the books, and I looked through the table of contents. Many of the articles I have not read. I'm reading for the first time. A good number of articles I have read, and I'm very familiar with. The very first article that we're going to be analyzing with respect to aesthetics, and really the one to kick this whole series off, is going to come from Heidegger. We're going to talk about Martin Heidegger's The Origin of the Work of Art. I wanted to begin with Heidegger's The Origin of the Work of Art because I think it'll set the tone for the lecture series on aesthetics. The idea in this lecture series is to give you an appreciation for the theoretical nature of aesthetics. I looked throughout YouTube, and there are videos, obviously, on aesthetics, but nothing to the extent that I plan on doing here. And as always, this lecture series, along with all my other lecture series, is a means of supplementing reading. I do not present these lecture series as a means of, supplanting the reading. You got to do the reading yourself. Use these lecture series to facilitate a greater interpretation, a different perspective, a more holistic understanding of aesthetics. But in no sense do I intend to suggest that my interpretation and my assessment of Heidegger or any of the other theorists that we'll be discussing in aesthetics is the interpretation, right? This is one of many interpretations, and again, this is a very, very comprehensive resource for people who are looking for comprehensive information, right? This is not the YouTube channel that you want to browse if you're sort of leisurely wanting to come to gain knowledge. This is basically free graduate level college education for the masses, right? This is what I do, and the aesthetics lecture is going to fall in line with what I've done with many, many, many other lecture series. Alright, enough of the chit-chat. Let's begin with introduction to aesthetics. So this is intro to aesthetics, and this is going to be section 1.0. And we're going to be covering Martin Heidegger's On the Origin, or the Origin of the Work of Art. So, the origin of the work of art. And this is Martin Heidegger. Okay. Also, I have to get my coffee because it's, for me now, early in the morning, and I didn't feel like finishing my coffee to begin the lecture series, so I'm drinking my coffee while I'm giving the lecture. Alright, so, first, Heidegger is attempting to discuss the essence of art. Right? Heidegger is attempting to discuss the essence. Right? We want to come to know, what does it mean to talk about the essence of art? And what I really hope, what would be cool in this lecture series is if I could really get artists to sort of participate in the discourse. I think later, as we progress, because I do envision a lot of the lecture series that I'm doing now, I envision me having to stop by December-ish, because I'm going to, this lecture series could be as short as, 12 to 15 hours. It could be as long as 40 hours, the aesthetics lecture series. I want to offer the artistic community some means of legitimizing and justifying what it is that they do in a world that's dominated by, still, unfortunately, to some extent, a very positivistic, very verificationistic, empirical-based sort of mentality, where the only thing that counts as legitimate are things that are readily tangible, readily quantifiable, readily accessible. I want to offer members of the aesthetics community and practitioners and artists the philosophical, theoretical justification for what it is that you do. And in that sense, we have to make sense of what is the essence, right? In that sense, we have to make sense of what is the essence of art. What is it essentially at its base when we talk about art? What is it that we're talking about? Heidegger begins this, which will be a very dense, very complex, but this is why I wanted to start with Heidegger. I went through and looked at every single one in both books of the chapters, and there are many. And Heidegger's piece, I'm familiar with this piece, one, so I'm comfortable. I'm not as comfortable, but I'm comfortable enough to obviously present the lecture. And then Heidegger's approach is just marvelous, right? He's a profoundly complicated theorist, but I think his insights are just, they're unmatched. So, it's a very sort of, it's a basic question, right? When we're talking about art, what's the essence of the discipline, right? When we're talking about art, what's the essence of what it is that we're talking about, right? It's really, in a sense, epistemological question, the attempt to find the essence of this thing, art. Okay, so pretty basic. Heidegger says, what something is as it is. Right? When we talk about the essence, right, we're trying to figure out what something is. What something is as it is. This is prototypical Heideggerian language, right? What something is as it is. So you might sort of collapse that rather grandiose terminology into art as such, right? You might collapse all of this to just basically mean art as such. What something is as it is, right? What is art as such? Say interchangeable. I'm using these concepts interchangeable. Art as such is easier than saying what something is as it is, but it means exactly the same thing. What does it mean when we talk about art as such? In Platonic forms, for those of you that are, and I probably shouldn't be evoking Plato, but in Platonic forms, not an instantiation of art, not a particular painting, not a particular sound of music, not a particular dance performance, not a particular, poetic recital. What does it mean to talk about the nature, the form, if you will, and Heidegger's not saying this, but the grandiose, the overarching structure of art as such, to which all particular aspects of art participate in Platonic sense, right? This is not quite ghetto philosophy. For those of you watching me for the first time, ghetto philosophy is my version of breaking it down, right? Breaking it down. Making what will prove to be exceedingly complex ideas very, very sort of tangible intellectually. Okay, so we see what's at stake here, right? We want to understand the essence of art as such. Origin for Heidegger, right? Origin precedes essence, right? Origin, this is important, right? Origin precedes, comes before the essence. Right? Origin comes before essence. Origin precedes essence. Quote, the origin of something